let's take us through a timeline from the beginning to until you're finally blessed with knowledge, clarity. A timeline from where we say the world is at fault, others are at fault, God is at fault, parents are at fault, neighbors are at fault. This is how we all start. And it's not just one person. Everyone really is like this, right? The world out there is at fault. So we have this fault-finding vision on the beginning. In the beginning, there was a fault-finding vision because you had no choice, right? And it's easy to cope like this. Something's not going well in my life, and so I will find an external means by which I can vent outwards. Children are like this, and it carries over into adulthood. And we all have this, right, a little bit in us, right, where the easiest way is to just find something else external to you and say, because of that, because it was not like this and it should have been like that, I am in this position today. And there is some truth to that. However, if you are honest, is that attitude really helping you? Is that attitude, or can you move forward in life with that attitude? Because there are so many things that have impacted you. So now if all of my attention is on all those things, then, right, can I really move forward? That's the real question. The answer is no, because it's, see, every time you see someone as an enemy or someone that's hurt you, then what you're choosing in that moment is to see what is not there. Okay, so the perception of the world that you have is really just a reflection of your inner thoughts. It's a direct correlation. So the world that I experience, how I experience others, how I experience whatever is going on in the world, in my neighborhood, in my house, in my proximity, that is reflecting what is going on inside my mind. And so it's giving you a preview what needs to be worked at. So now it's what Vedanta says is that before you move forward, you have to first be very honest to yourself and say, where am I? Am I still coloring in the world with my own ideas, how I want the world to be and how I don't want the world to be? And this has to be broken. And how do you break this? You break this pattern by firstly seeing that, sure, others have done something to me. They have, you know, in fact, tomorrow is going to happen, right? It's going to happen next week. So it's not once upon a time. It keeps on happening. So you do experience positive and negative events in your life, right? Positive, at least the way that you define them, and negative, how you define to be negative. But suppose that something does happen. So the first thing you have to do is recognize that everyone does for two reasons. Anything that ever happens to you unpleasant, it's only for two reasons. And the reason I'm saying this now is because when something does happen to you, then it's too late. If you don't have some fallback, if you don't have something to fall back on, like why did they do that, then it's already too late. Your mind's going to go into this mode of complaining and blaming the other side, and it's not going to help you. So if you want to simplify all human psychology as to why people do what they do, right? Why do they make mistakes? Why do they, you know, treat you harshly? Why do you treat others harshly sometimes? It's very simple. Number one is I don't have all the facts. If you look at any situation that has caused conflict or it has not been going well, it's always been you didn't know, and you say, if only, or you say, if only they knew a little bit more, it would have not happened. If they only knew just a little, like one extra piece of information, that would have not happened. Can you relate to this? Right? When someone disappoints you or treats you harshly or gives you an unfair treatment, or you do also the same to others, and then later on you find out, if there was just one piece of information that I knew about the situation, about them, about what they knew about me, this, whatever this is, would have not happened. So therefore, first reason why people do what they do, which you consider, in your words, negative or unpleasant, is because nobody has all the facts. In fact, If they knew just one piece of information about you, it would have changed the entire dynamic at once. At once, you would have, gotten along well, and maybe lifelong friends, and it would have gone a totally different trajectory if that one small piece of information was there, but it wasn't. And therefore, understanding this, you say, what can I do about this? And the answer is nothing, because there was never a time, nor will there ever be a time, when you have all the facts and when the other side has all the facts about you. Are we on the same page so far? Okay, good. Now, the second reason is because everyone, including you and me and teachers and students, and everyone is going to be operating from personal pressures, personal likes and dislikes. Personal pressures in psychology, we can call this kick the dog effect. Now, for all those dog lovers, I'm a dog lover too, but I hope you can relate to this, where the dog is being a kind soul to you. They're being cute with their ears down, and they're being like that guilty look, when they do something bad, you just want to pet them, right? Now, the person has all these pressures and demands in life, right? And they're not treated being fairly at work, at home, with the kids, right? With, the bills are coming, the wages are low. So all these pressures add up a little bit. And you also got conditioning from your childhood. That's also adding how you interpret the world. So all these things are like brewing inside. And now the kick the dog effect is where the dog, although they're really nice to you, like it's almost like one small mistake that the dog makes, what happens? I kick the dog, right? All that bottled up pressure at once, it has to vent somewhere, and it just happens to go towards that one to whom you feel safe towards. So in that same way, people have this kick the dog effect, where all this thing at home that goes on that you don't see because you don't have all the facts, that goes at work, that goes on in very many situations they've gone through, that they have no one to share this with. Even though it's kind of ironic, isn't it? You got social media today, which by definition means a ways to connect. And yet is social media a means to vent out your complaints to someone who's going to hear you out and not give you a whole bunch of nonsense, who is this complainer, and what do you know? No, it's like if you put your complaint out to the social media, then it's almost like you're risking your reputation. So social media is not really a means to vent out your anger. So now, though you've got all these means, the person has no real source to vent out their anger, because everyone wants to be heard, and there are very few people who want to listen. Right? So hear me out. But if I want to speak, then you're like, oh, make it all about yourself. Well, no, I just want you to hear me out. I don't need you to tell me anything. Just show that you understand me. That's all I need for my healing. But there's very few people who are actually willing to do that. So all of that pressure is there. And then slightly something happens. You're an innocent civilian walking on the street, and there's a sign that says, repairs. There's a repair section. And you're like, this repair section is for cars. This is, pedestrians. There's no problems for pedestrians. And one of the, workers, they just turn to you and they start shouting at you. Did you not see the sign? Is something wrong with the sign? And you take it literally, and you're like, no, nothing's wrong with the sign. And then you figure out after 1 minute of arguing that what they were really trying to tell you is, because communication skills are also important. They were trying to tell you is that you're in a danger zone and you're not supposed to be here. And then you're thinking, well, why did you just tell me that on the beginning? Why did you tell me, is something wrong with the sign? Like, you literally asking me a question, and then you say, no, nothing's wrong with the sign. But they're trying to communicate, is something wrong with the sign? Can you not see the sign? Is something wrong with you? Right? So now communication skills becomes another roadblock. And then you walk away and you realize all that shouting only left you feeling like you were looked down upon. They were speaking to you in a condescending way, like you're a little child, like you don't know anything. And you walk away and then you assess your feelings. And then you say, how do I feel now? Do I feel resentful, or do I feel like that this person was a friendly person? And then you say, well, definitely they were not friendly. I felt like they were condescending towards me. And then you say, well, why is that? Right? And then you say to yourself, remembering this class, what are the two reasons why people do things like this? Number one, They don't have nobody has all the facts. They don't know if you're a priest, if you're the best, most charitable person in the entire universe. They don't know that. You're just an ordinary fellow to them. And number two, kick the dog effect. All that stuff makes it about them and less about you. Another third reason why is when someone's overly concerned with the rules, like this has to be like this. The reason why people get uncomfortable with the rules and therefore you get scolded or you get reprimanded in a harsh way is because there's a structure inside. When the rule gets broken, I feel uncomfortable. So that now person becomes uncomfortable. And the way to restore that order is there's an excess focus on restoring the order, and we call this empathy gap. That means you're no longer a person to them, you're a person who has broken the rules. You're no longer a person with good intentions, you're a person who has violated the social hierarchy. And thereby all that empathy for you goes away because the excessive focus is on the broken rule. Therefore, empathy gap. Though you're a person with good intentions, the focus was excessively on the rule being broken. Therefore, you're now a person with bad intentions. So 3 reasons now why people do what they do. Number 1, don't know all the facts. Number 2,
kick the dog.
Kick the dog effect. All that bottled up pressure, unresolved stuff from home and childhood, all that has to vent somewhere. And number 3,
when rules get broken.
Yeah, the rules are broken, therefore empathy gap. I no longer have an ability to empathize with you. You're no longer a person with good intentions to me. You're just a person who has broken the rules. You are bad. So in that moment, you have to pull yourself back and just recognize they're a good person. By nature, they're a good person. That could be your best friend if you were to meet them in a different situation. So those 3 reasons you have to keep in mind. And why did I share this with you? Because I started out the conversation by saying everyone starts out in the very early stages by looking outwards. It's your fault. You were rude to me. You hurt me. Now I'm saying it's never about you. How you get responded to, it's never about you. In fact, it was never about you. Even if I compliment you, that compliment is not really about you. That compliment is just, I'm complimenting you because you're reflecting something that I like in myself. And you just happen to remind me of that. And I'm like, thank you for being like that, because you're just summoning that part in me that I like, and yet it's not yet completely developed. So I compliment you on that. So these 3 reasons what we need to keep in mind to have a little bit easier time as you get, in these kind of conflict situations. Okay. Now, if you look at Arjuna, in all 700 verses, what did Arjuna ask about? Himself? Or was he asking about why is Duryodhana doing that? Why is the world like this? Why is the world so, unfair? Why is Karna not turning back to our side? Why? Or is his every question about himself? His every question is about himself. So this tells you what a good, discerning person is about. Let others do what they do, because you don't need to know anymore. I just told you why people do what they do. Number 1, I don't know all the facts. Number 2, kick the dog effect. Number 3, empathy gap. What more do you need to know than that? Now, you can go into psychology and find 100 more reasons, confirmation bias, there's this bias, there's that bias. But in real life situations, are you really thinking like this? Are you really bringing the entire psychology book in your head? Absolutely not. You know how it is in real life. When there's a tussle, when there's a conflict, you need the bare minimum in that moment. And this bare minimum hopefully can, get you through. So what we then have to realize is, now that I have a means to deal with this world slightly better, so I'm not constantly feeling like a victim, I have to realize, first thing, I am not a fixed entity. I'm not a broken, fixed entity who no longer is subject to improvement or change. This is a belief that a person holds. Sometime they pick up a belief early on, and it says, you're no good. You can't improve. You can't get it, right? You will never get this. When I was, I mean, like the rest of us, right, in school, did your teacher ever tell you that you suck at drawing? My teacher did. I loved painting, right? In school, I was like 11, and I like to paint weird things, right? Different from other kids. And the teacher just never liked what I painted. And that created a scar and says, no, you don't like drawing. Now, I kind of do still like drawing, but if I really liked it, then I would definitely be drawing like Carol does. So scars get created in early childhood. And those scars too become that stifling belief that I can't move forward. I'm no good. So the first thing we have to do is just own up to yourself right now. I am not broken. I am not fixed. I am not stuck. I am capable. I can. And it's not too late for me. I'll give you some good news. Actually, you might think that children remember languages easier than adults. According to some studies that I've seen, adults actually pick up languages faster than young children, if you're in the right frame of mind. The reason is because you already have enough vocabulary, enough life experience to be able to create meaning to words. And how you really remember is you add meaning onto words, and therefore those words have some impact. But children have no prior associations, so it's a lot harder for them. You just think that children remember easier because you don't remember, but you really struggled. You had no choice. So you're not broken, you are not stuck, and it's not over for you. As long as you're breathing, no matter what age you are at right now, you are as good as a child who is in their prime years. Therefore, first, let's let go of this belief that I can't. This is huge because, right, then there's something holding me back, but it's my own self-limiting beliefs that are just pulling me back. So therefore, that is a no-no. The second point is that whatever you keep on planting or watering is what keeps on growing in your experience. Whatever you put aside fades out. So there's this time where the person, right, shares their story, which is useful, right? You share your pains and happiness and joys and so on. But then when we keep on sharing one thing to everyone, because that's the only thing that we have to say, just to connect to others, what you're doing is, though you're connecting with others by sharing your so-called life story, what you're really doing is you keep on watering those parts that you really want to leave you alone. So whatever you keep on watering keeps on re-emerging in your experience. Whatever you ignore, you put aside because you have talked about it, it fades out. So this means that if you want some things to fade out of your life, simply no longer talk about them, right? Tell yourself, I'm not going to bring this up in my conversation. I'm not going to bring up my ex this, my ex that in my conversation. I'm going to say this and this, like 2 topics at least to talk about. And slowly, slowly, you will find that you will free yourself from this, how I always do this, how I never on time. Hey, did you know that last weekend I went to this event? It was a business event, and I was like 30 minutes late. Can you believe it? I never arrive on time. And you're like, oh yeah, I can totally relate. And then I'm like, oh, we're getting a nice conversation. So this is working. So now this is how I connect to other people. No, so I have to let go of this. Whatever you keep on mentioning on and on and on, you keep on watering, and that keeps on re-emerging. Whatever you no longer mention, that fades out through time. Okay. Now, this whole journey is like a puzzle. And when you do a puzzle like Sudoku, when you play Sudoku or any game that you want, what happens? You fill up the numbers, right? Then find out later on, after so much investment of time, that there was one number that was incorrect. And now I have to restart from the beginning. But I've taken something with me at least. I've taken what not to do. And then again, you do it halfway, and then somewhere halfway you realize this is not working, and then you get stuck in halfway for maybe too long, right? And then what do? you have to take a break, go on a holiday, or come out of Vedanta for a while, stop learning all this, just come back, and then your mind is fresh. And then again, you look at the Sudoku puzzle and you're like, wow, now I'm fresh. Now I can see things from a different perspective. And then suddenly you fill in the next part. So Sudoku is a process. And that process involves restarting the game, fixing the errors, getting frustrated. It's a process, slow but surefire process all the way to the end. And what's the purpose of Sudoku? It is to get that final number. When you look at that entire puzzle and you're satisfied and you say, it was worth it. All that struggle and restarting and changing the rules and going away and coming back, it was totally worth it. So now you feel great about yourself that you figured it out. Now, Krishna calls this final puzzle piece where you have taken that time and effort and help. That's called assimilated knowledge. That assimilated knowledge, once that knowledge is there, there's no going back. You know your nature, you know the nature of the world, nature of everything. There's no going back. Now, as far as knowledge is concerned, it can add fill the small holes here and there, but in terms of the big picture is crystal clear. Verse 36 is then now going to continue. And now that you have gotten this knowledge, what does knowledge do for you? It removes the mental image that you are bound. Okay, you were never bound. It's an encoded image that the person carries in their mind that I am bound. The truth is you're not bound. So that mental image is not replaced by a different form of image. It is simply removed. But then Krishna asks, or we can ask, but can I really get to that point? Am I really eligible for that knowledge? Am I really eligible to fill that final piece of the puzzle in Sudoku? 36 will answer that. Apiched asipa pe pyaha sarve pyaf papa kritamaha sarvam jnana plave naiva virginam santarishyasi.
Even if you are the worst sinner among all sinners, you will cross all sins with ease by the mere raft of knowledge.
Okay, so any criminals in this class? Any killers? There's hope for you. This is what Krishna is saying. The worst sinners, even they can get this knowledge. So he's giving us hope and encouragement. So after all of this teaching so far up to chapter 4, you've heard about the jiva, the person who comes with ignorance, who then applies an action to fill themselves up because they believe they need to be full, who then makes mistakes, who then also does good things, who then experiences karma pala onto them. That person we've talked about, the one with the three bodies, the physical body, the subtle body, the causal body. We talked about the jagat, which is the world that you experience, the perceptible world, the subtle world also, the universe. We talked about Ishvara, the cause of the universe, the intelligence from which arises the entire universe, which is both the material cause and the efficient cause. That means the material cause is in itself intelligence, and the efficient cause is that intelligence which puts together all things that are manifest and holds them together and is the blueprint for the entire universe. So it is upadana karanam and nimitta karanam. This is Ishvara. So jiva, jagat, and Ishvara. And you've heard about all this. And suppose you're saying this is such a huge vision. There's so many things to hold and there's so many things to connect the dots. When will I get all of this? And then Krishna says, he counters your doubt. Now, look at this. You're saying, when will I, a good person, in overall, a good person, a giving person, when will I, a good person, get all of this? But Krishna says, what's the problem here? Because even if you are the worst sinner of all, you can cross all sins by the raft of knowledge. And he calls here papa kritama. They're not minor offenders, by the way. These are not small time, people who just swear or drive loud cars, annoy everyone at night. These are like, the bootleggers, the self-centered narcissists, the murderers, the criminals, like in a like maximum security prisons. So the worst sinners of all can get this knowledge if they choose to seek it. If they choose, someone's in the cell right now and they're in a maximum security prison, and you offer them the Gita. Now, if they're in the right state of mind because they've come to see that their ways were not useful, and you give them the Gita and you give them a teaching, if they choose and they're interested enough to see this knowledge, they can attain the highest in a cell. And you're in your home, safe, good person, hard-working person. So Krishna here is giving you encouragement. Unlike what we say some places where if you do something bad, you're eternally, right, going to, go to this whatever place. Now, the reason why this is not true is because did you choose to be ignorant? Did you choose to not know all the facts? Does somebody get born with a goal and say, I'm going to be born and I'm not going to know things in this world? Does anyone do that? No, nobody. So you didn't choose to be ignorant. So you now can't expect that being who just gets born in this world, who doesn't know any better, and by that virtue does the wrong thing, you cannot expect that person to be eternally punished for sins. Because I didn't create, nor did I choose to be ignorant. Ignorance was there since the beginningless of the beginning. And I'm born in that moment of ignorance, and I'm just like going, I don't know everything, right? This is the way to survive. So what Krishna says is because you did not create this beginningless ignorance, for that reason, it cannot be reasonable to say you will be eternally punished. If you did choose, if you were the creator and you were like this independent entity and the universe is over there, and you said, I'm going to now create trouble in that universe over there, on Earth over there, I'm going to do that, and no one's forcing me. In that case, you can be, quote, eternally punished or whatever, right? But you didn't do that. So thereby, the worst sinner, those who have done the most, the worst kind of things that you can think of, a rapist, whoever it is that you consider the worst, they too have a chance to repent, to understand the full vision and attain moksha and not get rebirth next life. Therefore, on one hand, your effort does count. The second point is, though your effort counts, because you still have to take the initiative, right? Though the person's a sinner, they still have to say, I want a way out. I want to know the Lord. I want to repent, right? Though they still take the initiative, who still chooses ultimately when the knowledge takes place? Not that there is an Ishvara that chooses, but ultimately, if you had the shots, if you had the control buttons, could you really just press those buttons anytime? If you really had those buttons, if the button was really yours, there's a button called moksha, knowledge takes place, would you have not pressed it already? Everyone would, because that is what you gain the highest. But the fact is, it has not happened yet. So this means that I don't call all the shots. If I did, it would have happened yesterday. So though I can apply effort, I still don't hold the final key when that veil gets removed. For instance, I used this last week. Newton, all he did as far as effort is concerned is he read the books. He was involved in the teaching, wasn't he? He was fully immersed in physics. As far as the knowledge of that epiphany of gravity taking place, that was completely out of his control. He just happened to sit down, his mind was in a peaceful state of mind, and something took place on that day and not some other day, and he said, wow, that is amazing. Now let's go and bring it to the panel and let's, investigate this force. And so this is why we say, though you do have some level of control, that's called your effort, like Newton, as far as level of control he had, what is it? In the epiphany or in the involvement himself in the books, in the teaching. Yeah, he was involved in the teaching. He was sincere about it. So therefore, there is a two-part process there. How do you say that the worst offenders can still get their nature fully assimilated? Well, this is because knowledge is an entirely different paradigm shift. So for example, you take a dream. You're a murderer in the dream, right? And you're the worst offender. You're now faced before the jury, the judge, and you're sentenced to a life in prison. And it's a bad thing, right? You hear the final verdict in court and you're standing there as a dream character and you're terrified, right? Now, all those things, even a death sentence, and it's like you're going to be electrocuted, you're going to be gassed or whatever it is, or injected. And it's just terrible how you feel. Now, the moment you wake up, then you ask yourself the question, who was the doer of all of those murderous deeds in the dream? Was it me?
Because you haven't collapsed the choice. It was just ongoing in your mind. So all these events just played out without collapsing a choice.
Good. It was not you who was resting there, planning out the whole thing, scheming the whole thing. It was just happening in your mind. You had no connection, no real connection to it, while the entire dream was depending upon you. All throughout, you were independent of the characters and the storyline in the dream. So at once you realize, I did not partake any of the storyline in the dream. It was just an expression with its own theme for that night, for that particular 5 hours. I didn't do anything, right? Otherwise the police comes off and says you committed a crime, and you say, no, I didn't. You did in the dream. And then you say, well, but I didn't do it. It's a dream. It's an entirely different universe, right? And where are they? Where is that murder? Or where is that killer? Where is that victim? And I say, well, we can't find them. And then you say, got you. I got you. Because that whole thing is gone. Where is it now? So the entire paradigm shift takes you out of this so-called doer, which is equated here to the sinner, to the person who you think you are. In other words, the entire waker, right? It swallows the dreamer. It swallows the doer. It swallows that character. So in that same way, when knowledge takes place, owing to your shift of identity, it swallows the so-called Leo, the so-called Silma, the so-called Michelle, the so-called Katie, right? That is instantly, by your cognitive understanding, there was just a character playing out their role who never really created or chose to be ignorant. They were just doing this entire show from beginning to the end. And if I had a choice, I would have pulled out of that show anytime, and I would have grabbed my limitless nature. But now that the knowledge has taken place, I claim my nature and let the fictional character continue doing, their work.
So whose dream is it that we are living?
Are you talking about the actual dream at night, or this so-called dream?
Now, if we're all part of a dream from which we have to wake up.
Okay, it's like a dream. We're not really saying that the Vyavaharika is a dream, but it's like a dream. You have to put that word like. Otherwise, we start to think this world is a dream. It's not a dream. It's a Ishvara Srishti creation. So this so-called dream is a collection of my efforts, your efforts, somebody else's efforts, and we just intersect according to our ideas of what life is all about, and we create new causes in this world. We create a house, and a house attracts buyers, and then buyers, create shops, and shops creates a whole city, and then a city attracts more people, and people start to sort of, compete in that city, and that creates now the need for a governor in the city. So one thing leads to another. This is how world unfolds. I start with my idea of what needs to be done. Then I attract somebody else, and then we collectively come together, and slowly spreads. And then you times that one person's intentions by 8 billion. And then you have the complex world that you have today. So whose dream are we dreaming? I would rephrase that question into a little different understanding. This so-called dream has never really begun. There was never a point when it began for the first time. There was always a person in the dream who was having an idea, and there was always another person in the dream who also had an idea, and there was always an interaction in that dream about what do we want to create. right? What are we about? What is life about? And there was always a conversation going on in this dream. So now to say whose dream is this, you can't really say, you can't pinpoint one single person. It's the collective, right? Because it never really began, right? So the story being timeless backwards, now you're in that story in a one little fraction of time. So whose is it? It's mine, it's yours, it's everyone's. And what is then Ishwara's, as far as Ishwara is concerned, what is Ishwara's role? Ishwara provides the air to breathe, the space to move, the warmth, the fire to, right, warm ourselves, the earth to extract resources, to work out our stuff. So Ishwara is not choosing, making us do. We, according to our choices, are making this dream what it is right now. Ishwara is just supplying the trees, the roots, the ocean, the sun, the air, right? And we make use of that sunlight, which is Ishwara's. We make use of that sunlight and we create, through solar panels, electricity. And then we say free energy. And then we create, right, businesses on that. And the whole show is just revolving like that. So the other example that I want to point out is, what do you mean by this paradigm shift? Well, you see, when you don't know what you don't know, you see yourself as a person. This is how we start out. I am a person, right? I am an individual person. And there is a world over there. And I, the person, am different from the world. And I have to get things from the world. I have to extract resources from the world for my sake. So this is how we start out. It is kind of like when you walk into a dark room and you bought a belt, like a real pretty belt with some scales on it. And you walk into that room and that belt to you looks like a black mamba, a snake, right? You happen to see a documentary, so you know what a black mamba looks like. Now, what happens in that moment with that black mamba? For you, it's a black mamba. It's not a belt anymore. Officially for you, what you see is an entirely different thing from what it actually is. For you, the reality is a black mamba. What comes along with that? Fear, scream. If you run away and then you start to tell other people, you're throwing a conspiracy theory, how there's a black mamba in a house, it appeared out of nowhere, someone's using black magic, is going to lead to nonsense. And then other people, owing to their lack of their ignorance, they're going to buy into your story, and a whole community is going to get born around black mambas. So now I saw a black mamba. I created a certain, not that I created, but owing to my non-seeing of the belt, I saw a black mamba. Owing to my ignorance of the substratum, I saw that which is close to the substratum, because the black mamba still has the side, you know, the kind of looks like a belt and it's similar, but it's not anywhere near belt. This is what we call superimposition. So I superimposed owing to my non-seeing of the belt, and thus I acted according to what I saw. Now, what happens the moment someone turns on the light? That light gets thrown and it illumines the reality of what is. And thus, immediately, I no longer see what I erroneously saw. I now see what is. And in that moment, I realized that black mamba, though it appeared for me completely real, and I acted according to what I saw, it never had any real existence. There was no such thing as a black mamba. Somebody else would have saw not a snake. What else can you equate to a rope, to a belt?
Electric wire.
Electric wire, even worse, right? This is electricity. So now if you had some bad experience with electricity in your childhood, now that's going to contribute to the kind of fear you experience in reference to seeing the electric wire. So therefore, when you throw light on what is, and that light we call Brahma Vidya. And what is here the belt compared to? The reality compared to? Atma. Okay, or Brahman. So the reality is Brahman. The reality is intelligence. But what I see is I see, you know, forms there. I see another form over there. I see, you know, some person over there doing some bad behavior. But in reality, all that is here is just intelligence manifesting as different forms. So this means that the moment you throw light self-knowledge upon who you really are, that's called the Shastra. You throw the Shastra upon who you are, it illumines, it turns on the light, and you see your nature as you really are. That's the purpose of the Shastra. Okay? So in this way, the paradigm shift is when I come to Vedanta and I see the Satya-Mithya relationship, then you ask yourself, who's the real doer? Like, find me a doer, please, because that's who I think I am. I'm an individual, right? An individual person. I am a doer. Please find me a doer right now. What do you mean when you say, like, doer? Like, I'm a doer, I'm an enjoyer, I'm an individual person. What are you referring to? What exactly makes you an individual from somebody else?
I sense.
But now, what is the I sense? I sense is nothing but the idea, the opinion about who you are. So I have one opinion about myself, and you have another opinion. And on the basis of two opinions, which themselves are going to change tomorrow, on the basis of that, I call myself different from you. If you look at your boundaries, the body, right? Your body is, if you really want to say your body is different from somebody else, then you would have to say everything about my body is different from your body. But nothing is different from your body because essentially it's just molecules and atoms. It's exactly the same composition, just different rearrangement. So on the basis of a different rearrangement, I say on the basis of that, I am different from you. That's a fail.
So it's the filters by which you view life, the behaviors that control the body-mind.
That still doesn't define difference. They're just different thinking patterns, because I can have your thinking patterns and you can have my thinking patterns. So does that now mean that I am like you? Because if thinking patterns separate us, that means I'm never allowed to have the same thinking patterns as you. But I do. So it can't be thinking patterns. It can't be the body, because the body is made atoms. Thinking patterns, I can have your thinking patterns, you can have mine. So it can't be thinking patterns either. So what makes you an individual from others, if you want to take that belief?
Andre, so I think I'll extend what I said before, like the I sense, but the subtle body and the consciousness, and that the combination of that makes us individual. Plus because we feel sensations only up till this physical body. All the sensations, perceptions we have is through this body alone, and that makes that ego feel I am only this.
So what I understood is that because this body is experiencing something different from your body, on the basis of that difference, the experience here is different from your experience. On the basis of that, that makes me an individual from you.
The thoughts, the subtle body, and the fact that I can only have sensations and perceptions through this physical and subtle body is what makes this specific body mind index individual, because I cannot perceive or feel sensations of the other body.
Okay. Tell me this. Where's the difference between you and I in deep sleep?
Yeah, and then there's no difference.
So this means the difference is only as long as there's a incidental body given to me for 8 hours. And on the basis of those 8 hours, I'm going to say your 8-hour experience is different from my 8-hour experience. And yet it's not even the full 24 hours. So this means when my mind is not engaged in thinking, in generating opinions, then all differences cease at once. Pankaj?
Then I would say ignorance makes us individual.
Okay, but then when you say ignorance, so what do we mean by ignorance? So when we say ignorance, I believe on the basis of my experience that I'm experiencing, that is what makes me up. My thoughts, my collective sensations in the body, my collective, life experience, my life story. But the way that we define real is that which you can never not find. You can never not find it. That means you always can find it. That's what real means. There's never a moment when you can not find it. So can I find any moment, a thought that happened to me that I had about myself, an opinion, someone said ahamkara, an opinion you had about yourself when you were 5 years ago? Can you find that opinion now? You know that opinion that said, oh, I'm a loser. Can you find that? You don't even remember. But at that time, that opinion was you. And on the basis of that opinion, at that time, you said, therefore, I am different from you. But now, 5 years later, that opinion is gone, replaced by another opinion. Oh, I'm so much better than you. That's the new opinion now. But that new opinion right now will become a past opinion from the standpoint of tomorrow or 1 year from now. So now, which opinion about you do you want to attribute as I? Because the opinion you had 5 years ago, you're not thinking that about yourself anymore at all. You're thinking about a totally different I in terms of opinion right now. You're saying, no, I'm a confident warrioress. You know, I've got this. 5 years ago, I can't get anything. I'm a lost soul. And you believed it. And that was your so-called permission slip to be different from everyone else. From everyone else who was at that time thinking that they were the warrioress. And now you're thinking, I am the warrioress. And now, once again, you're making the same mistake as 5 years ago. But what about tomorrow? The opinion that you have today is gone. So now, which opinion about you that you have do you want to say is the real you?
Say again.
No opinion. Because anything that you can no longer find is not real. But what is one thing that you can find 5 years ago? And you can find it right now, and it has not changed. Did you find yourself 5 years ago? Could you find yourself 5 years ago? Can you find yourself now?
Yeah.
Will you find yourself 5 years from now?
Yes.
But what will I not find 5 years from now? The opinion about I that I'm having right now. Therefore, you cannot say this on the basis of the subtle body, because subtle body basically just means opinion about who I am, or the ahamkara, opinion about who I am, or the physical body.
So can we say individuality is only because of ignorance of our true selves, our true nature, we become individual? If we don't have, if there is no ignorance, then there is no individual.
Well, there is an individual as far as empirical individual, so you have to give it some reality. You have to give some reality to the pot, right? But you say the pot is only incidental. It is not that which is going to be there all the time. I can just squash a pot in one moment, it's gone. But if there's one thing that's going to be there, is I'm going to still find
clay.
I will find the clay. So the substance, the awareness, you will always find no matter what opinion you have about yourself. Therefore, what is that which is absolutely real? It's that which you can never not find. You will always find it in any opinion you have about yourself. The opinion you won't find anymore, but you will still find you, the awareful presence, because of which that opinion is known to you.
So I heard that and it really struck me. Wow, like it was like, wow. So Swami Krishnananda was mentioning, I don't control how I came into the world, my birth. I don't control when I'm dying or how I'm dying. So how can we have the arrogance or the foolishness to understand that we are controlling all of the middle? And controlling, we can say, is like the doer. So that really like struck me, these words.
Okay, so we don't really control when we are born. We don't control when we die. Of course. So this lets you have a certain amount of humility that I do the best I can while I am on earth with the resources that I'm given. There's just no point complaining, because what's that going to do? So it's a nice, beautiful reminder. Use what you got. Simple. Make the best of it. You're not broken. You're not fixed. It's not too late. You can you can get this. This life is given to you for that reason alone.
I had a thought that we say everything is changing and therefore nothing exists because it will not exist permanently. But if you think deeply, everything is changing about something. There is a mean around which it is changing, plus minus. So change is there, but with respect to the mean, can we call that mean as the individual?
So you're talking, okay, so, but see, even that average, that waker, because everything you're talking about is what's revolving around the ahamkara or the mean on the average. I would just equate the mean to the ahamkara. So everything revolves around, around the ahamkara. We say the entire life is centered around you, right? So now that which, what is that mean, that so-called ahamkara? It is just that which collects all the experiences that the mind's generating, that the intellect's generating, that the emotions are generating, and it gets attached. Those emotions and that intellect and those opinions get attached onto the so-called mean, the so-called ahamkara. And then the ahamkara says, I am going through this. Now, let me just put this a little bit differently. When I say ahamkara, because this is a big word, there's only one aham here, I. Okay. Now, what is the second word, kara? Aham, kara. We'll go back to what we were just saying. If there's only one I, but when the intellect creates a certain conclusion about the I, that kara is a mechanism that attaches that conclusion as though it belongs to aham. So what is the ahamkara? It's that mechanism that makes everything centered around I. Okay? It takes the emotions and it makes it about I. It takes the intellect and makes it about I. It takes the pain, the back pain, and it says, I have back pain. There's back pain in reference to I being seemingly attached to back pain belonging to Andre, then that I makes a claim to the help of the mind, I have back pain. So the kara mechanism is that mechanism that attaches all experiences belonging to one individual, which is why you think, though you are the all-pervasive aham, you think that aham is as good as the one who's this person is, right, going through. This person is going through a migraine headache. And what do you say? I am going through a migraine headache. But that I is actually universal. So now what is knowledge? Because we're speaking about ignorance. You know, what is ignorance and what is knowledge? Ignorance is when you say, yes, indeed, this chronic pain, this migraine, this confusion is attached to me. Therefore, I am confused. That's the job of the ahamkara. But what is then knowledge? Knowledge is when you say, yes, there is chronic pain, there is a migraine headache, there is confusion, but it doesn't make a statement about I. It does get centered on the I, but it doesn't make a statement about I. You understand? So whatever happens in your world, whatever the world is showing and displaying, it seems like it's getting attached to the I. What is moksha? It is the knowledge that though it seems like it's centered on the I, is it really about I? Is it really about me? Is the confusion really about me? Is ignorance really about me? Is anger really about me? Is the hurt really about me? No, no, no. Does that mean I push away anger, push away hurt, push away ignorance, push away this and that? No. Simple clarity. Though it seems like it's about me, is it really about me? If you said no, that is knowledge. Will it one fine day appear like it's not about me? No. Because as long as you're wearing a body, it will appear like it's about you, but knowledge cancels that out and says, though it appears like it's about me, it's not really about me.
I was just going to add to the earlier conversation that even memories change. So when you retell a story, they've proven it in science that it's always either exaggerated depending on your value system. So whatever value you put on the experience, you could look at the same object as another person and you have a completely different value system, and they're looking at it from their own set of values, and you have a totally different interpretation of that same event. So, and even in time, you lose those details in your mind and you create different stories again. So it's always shifting and changing, even supposed ideas that you have of yourself, or according to different memories you've had. They're always shifting and changing, and they call it Chinese whispers, but you know, like it's an inappropriate name for that. But I can't think. Heard on the grapevine, that's probably a better way of saying it. So if you heard something on the grapevine, it can change over time depending on your value systems.
Yeah. And now I was trying to suppress changes. I was trying to negate changes. I was trying to name and label changes how I shouldn't have changes. No. Okay, because change by definition means change. Okay, it has to take its course. It's going to take its course, and some of the changes are not going to be welcomed by you. Some of the changes will be welcomed by you, but either way, is it about me? No. Okay, let's do a little improvisation. Let's put this to the test. The class ends, and you go into a little conflict with something. Someone writes you off or says something rude to you. I know there's many ways to respond, but how will you now take this knowledge that it's not about you? How will you take this? And also understanding at the beginning of the class, people do things because they don't know everything, because kick the dog effect, and there's an empathy gap. Go ahead.
It gives you a pause and be, see, you've got space around what happens to you to not react from a habitual conditioning, to act with discernment, to gather yourself and to do something different that you wouldn't have been able to ordinarily access. So then you'll get different feedback from the universe.
Yeah. If you were still in the world, as usual, things happen. People that you love sometimes leave you. How would it be for you, and new people come into your life, how would it be for you if you were just going through this world, still loving, doing what has to be done, acting appropriately, knowing that no matter what happens, it was never about you? Nothing that ever happened, nothing that you ever did or didn't do or are yet to do, none, zero, nothing had anything to do with you. That you were just the witness of the entire show. Because that was who you were. That's who you were from the beginning. How might that change your experience on Earth? Without pushing things down, without denying them, without pretending, you know, just humble human being. You have no credit score, no credit history on you. There's no account attached to you that says, here's all the good things you've done, here's all the bad things you've done. That doesn't belong to you. How might you act when against something, you know, someone, you lose someone, and someone new comes into your life, or some conflict happens and you're like, this is okay. I welcome this. I need to do what I need to do to address it to the best of my ability, right? To keep empirical things in order, but it's not about me.
Pure chitta vritti, so I can be more detached and more single-pointed in my thinking. And
before, oh, it's about me, you know, why God? Why are you punishing me? Why does this have to happen to me? You know, why am I going through this? Why did I find myself at this time, at this place? It must be my prarabdha karma. I must be very unlucky. Huh? It's very heavy to live like this. So I want you to really think about this statement. It's not about me here. It never was about you here. One fine day when your body goes, you know, they call it the life review, and there's a life review. Why is there a life review if nothing had to do with anything to do with me? What does that say? If you go through a life review, I pray for you. that means your identity is still in the doer. I'm going through a life of you. Here's all the good things you have done. And you're like, oh, okay, wow, I've done this. Oh, I'm so proud. And now here's a screen of all the bad things I've done. Oh no, okay, I'll go back to earth and I will make things right this time. Because I am a doer, I did that. Okay, you go and sort your things out.
What I was saying is that if I knew that I'm not the doer and everything is happening just because it has to happen certain way, I would be absolutely equanimous, free, liberated. That is what would be moksha, as I understand.
We will clarify that you are param shantim. They will be coming up, but your mind will still be, in a mode of, right, rajas, tamas, and sattva, because the mind is driven by the three gunas in the universe. And so the mind cannot be expected to be completely sattvic all the time. But as far as your understanding, irrespective of the mind being sattvic or rajasic sometimes, it makes no statement about me. That's knowledge. Okay, and thereby you can let the mind, in fact, we will see very soon, what is the highest form of peace? Krishna is going to call this param shantim adhigachati. They go to the highest peace. Is this going to be emotional peace? Is this going to be a peace of the mind? Is the mind going to be in an equanimous state? It's impossible. The mind's going to go through its ups and downs. Despite the presence of the mind, my true nature, the illuminator of the mind, is free of the perturbations, the turmoil of the mind. That is Param Shanti.
It was just a little anecdote about what happened to me recently about things not being about me. So I was, I guess some of you kind of noticed that I'm an artist, and I was talking to this guy who's a curator, and he's a big shot, but he could not understand abstraction. And I'm an abstract painter. So I was trying to explain to him what it was. And no matter what I said, he would not accept it, and so another day I took myself out of the equation and just presented him with facts that other people had said about abstraction, and he accepted that. And I was going like, shit, he was like belittling me. He wasn't, I was basically saying the same thing, but I was framing it in a way that it wasn't me speaking about it. It was someone else.
Okay.
Someone else who's got clout.
Okay.
And I felt really bad, like, oh, he doesn't, he doesn't respect my knowledge on this matter, which I think I have a lot. Okay.
Right.
But anyway, because of our course and everything, I was mature enough to put it aside and not dwell on it too much. Okay. But then what happened is another friend of mine who was an artist, she did a performance where she was a very much a spoken thing, and she wanted feedback. And the feedback that he gave her is that he wanted to hear things that are not coming from here, but facts that was coming from somewhere else. And she was upset about that, because he was like belittling her. So I told her, look, don't worry. He did exactly the same thing to me. So it's not about you. It's not about me.
I got it.
It's his stuff. It's whatever
Yeah, this is so powerful, right? When you kind of finally something clicks in you and you just get it. It's really not about you, really. No matter who or what says anything about you, I promise you, if you really analyze the experience, it's never, ever been about you, right? People just have this almost like you come to this place and you have a need. I need you so I can say my stuff. It's like that. I basically need you so I can put out all that bottled up pressure. Thank you, Ishwara. But people don't really see you as Ishwara in that moment. They see you as a just an object to put stuff out. But yeah, I also had experiences like that, right? Where I thought, oh, I'm knowledgeable and I've got so much experience in this, and you're just treating me like I don't know anything. And it stings, doesn't it, initially? But when you think about it, in retrospect, you kind of work things out and you say, thank you so much that this has happened. It actually makes me stronger. And that's exactly what Krishna is going to say in the next verse. that the knowledge becomes a means to strengthen you. The more knowledge solidifies. Verse 37. Yathai dhamsi samidhognihi bas masat kurute arjuna jnanagni sarva karmani bas masat kurute tatha.
Just as a well-lighted fire reduces wood to ashes, so too, Arjuna, the fire of knowledge reduces all actions to ashes.
So now the metaphor is created. How does knowledge that we speak of, how does that actually burn this ignorance? And uses the metaphor of fire. So if you have a matchstick fire, right, a small fire, then the smallest gust of wind will blow that fire, right? That fire is very subject to being put out by the smallest forces, a blow of your, mouth or whatever it is. So now you have to protect that fire, don't you? But when that fire somehow through time, as you keep on feeding it with dry wood, hopefully, that fire turns into a conflagration. And that fire now becomes huge. Now, when the same wind that used to blow out the fire blows into that conflagration, what happens to that fire now?
It burns brighter.
It goes even bigger. Now you're like, bring it on, world. Give me more conflict, right? Give me more drama. Because I'll tell you why. Because now you have this knowledge, right? And initially, when you start out this journey, you see, there's this doubt, like there's always something better out there. And so it's very easy to sort of be sidetracked, right? You come to a Vedanta class and you're not quite convinced, right? You're like, yeah, this, guy's okay, but there's other teachers out there. The YouTube's full of them. There's others Buddhisms. There's different schools of philosophy. And you're still in that sensitive mode. You're like a little fire. And what you're trying to do is just, hey, look, I've got a little bit of fire that I've already lit up by somebody else. And here's Vedanta telling me something a little bit different. I want to protect my fire. So I'm going to go away. So initially that fire, even if it's Vedantic fire, is very subject to being manipulated. That means somebody can tell you that no, Advaita is wrong. The Advaita, duality is the real thing. If you're teaching this, then you will be faced with opponents. And opponents will say that Advaita has a flaw, right? Advaita we'll call us Mayavadis, right? You're calling everything an illusion, right? So they will throw these different objections. Now, if you're not strong in your knowledge, then that very objection will make you doubt, and you will find yourself turned off from Advaita. Somebody has persuaded you out of it because they had a stronger frame of mind. That's the beginning stages. Now, as your knowledge grows and you get more and more information from every class, and the puzzle, like the Sudoku, it comes together more and more, then you find yourself, yes, even though there are other competing schools who are saying something similar or sometimes different, actually now I welcome them. I welcome them because they just help me to see how flaws get developed, how people believe certain flaws, and yet there is something that actually fills that flaw and it doesn't contradict itself. So now you start to use the worldly challenges, the worldly whatever drama and conflict, and you walk away and you say, this is a great opportunity to test my knowledge. Thank you that this has happened, because if this has not happened, how will I know that I'm deeply established in this knowledge? How will you know? Who was it that showed me a video of, was it a monk? Okay, it was a monk. Yes, I remember now. So what's up? Who spent years in a monastery learning about mindfulness and kindness. Then the monk came back into the world, and he got into a relationship. And I honor him because he's an honest monk. And he was interviewed, and he was sharing how the monk environment in the ashram, in the monastery, does not support, has not taught him the crucial principles that you need in the world. He said, I was totally convinced that everything I've got, everything I need, I learned it in a monastery. When I got into a relationship, I had no structure. I had no backbone. All those things that I learned in the quiet, peaceful environment, that predictable environment, very few of that was actually applicable in a dynamic, unpredictable relationship. And I responded to this friend of mine. I responded to her and I said, every monk deserves a lady. Only then you're a true monk. You can't call yourself a monk. It's just a title. It's like wearing a robe or some sort. I want to see you in the real world, in real life challenges, in a relationship. When you get tested, now you're a real monk. Every monk deserves a lady. Then you're a real monk. This is Andre quote. Question now is, there's this fire of knowledge. And fire of knowledge solves this problem of not knowing who I am. Now, the question that I'm posing is, how do you end up here in the first place? What is a certain order? When you are born, do you know everything? No. Therefore, how do you get born? Avidya, ignorance. Your experience proves it. Ignorance of what? Of your full nature, of your fullness. Now, when you are feeling like a small individual, what do you do with that? A desire comes. So what follows avidya? Kama. Okay, because I get avidya of my full nature, fullness, therefore I need kama to fulfill myself. Now, because I have kama, what will I do with that kama? Put it out into the world. What comes next? Karma, action. When I apply an action, then results come back to me. So what follows karma? Karma phala. When karma phala is accrued into my account, then I need a new body to continue experiencing the sukham and dukkham as a result of that involvement in the world. So there's a shootout. The bad guy gets shot multiple times, right? And he goes to the hospital. And they fix him. They replace his legs, they replace his arms, they replace his heart, they replace his lungs, they replace everything except his head. When he comes out of the hospital, he's got a brand new body. Where does he go? Straight from the hospital. He goes to jail, my friend. Just because you got a new body, why did you get a new body? So that you can be healthy to experience the full blow of your effects. I don't think I gave you a good body so that you can enjoy yourself. The irony is I gave you a good body so that you can just go through all of that papam that you've done. This is how the system works. Even if I lose this body, depending on that karma phala, that's the kind of new body that you will receive according to the Vedic principles. Now, the moment you switch that identity from this doer with all these sins and all this account, and you shift that identity through an understanding to your nature, which is free of that door, then at once, right, you are not subject to all those papams and punyams that you've accrued. This is the Vedic model. So thereby, we use the example of the dream, and the dream character, the person who did all those things in the dream, we call that the karta, the doer, or the enjoyer. That person, upon the waking, whatever that person did, none of that goes onto you. Okay, so this is the story of a jiva. The jiva who starts out life, and then you go through that life all the way to the end. And that life story that a jiva goes through, that's called prarabdha karma. Now look at this. Suppose I tell you a story. It goes like this. I went downstairs into the garage and full stop. Does that sound like a normal story? Does it sound like a complete story? No. Every story has a beginning, a middle, and an end. You know, if I said a story to 10 million people, you'll continue the story, my friend. So prarabdha is like this. It's a story that doesn't abruptly end. Unless the person, right, has, whatever, suicide or something. But the person goes to the full round of their prarabdha, and when it comes to an end, your prarabdha is finished. Now, if you're a wise person, we call that videha mukti. Now, suppose you ask what happens to a jiva mukta when they drop their physical body. Because the assumption is sometimes they go into a state of nothingness, right? They go into, they cease to exist. This is incorrect. All that happens when you drop your body, called Videha Mukti, is you no longer continue as another effect. You become the cause of the universe. You become Ishwara's, you continue as Ishwara's Swarupa, awareness. That means you don't open up your eyes and then you say, oh, I am contained in another container. That doesn't happen anymore. Because your identity of who you are is the whole. It's not one individual, it is the whole. Thereby, if you take, for example, a pot, a wise pot, when a wise pot falls, it does not come back as another pot. Why not? Can someone explain?
It knows its real nature is not affected by any of this. None of the karma, none of the changes, either past, present, or future, none of it affects the attributeless self.
Okay. And from the standpoint of the clay, where am I from the standpoint of the clay?
It is the clay. It recognizes it's the clay. It was never the pot.
And from the standpoint of the clay, where am I? Am I just in one single pot? Or
no, everywhere. Everywhere.
So now, if my genuine definition of I is in that which is all pervasive, where and how can you ever come back as one single pot? See? So you've changed your identity. Therefore, the wise person, it's not like they no longer just cease to exist. Now you are everything. But while I am everything, I am free of everything. Just like the pot, the clay is obtaining in all pottenware, the plate made out of clay, the pot made out of clay, and a fork made out of clay, but the clay is free of whatever it obtains as. So therefore, though I am everything, called Videha Mukti, I am free of all things. I am free of even intelligence. So Videha Mukti is not losing anything, it is gaining everything.
I have a question about this state, right? In contemplation, is it like you feel it in contemplation? Because there's a contemplative one, which is word pointers, where you experience no boundaries because it doesn't have any boundary, it's just your true nature. So do you experience that in Samadhi?
No boundaries in Samadhi?
Yeah.
Yeah, Samadhi is definitely to help you, to give you a taster of your boundless nature, which you can then use as a means of knowledge to reflect. So this is what they're pointing to when they say, I am boundless, I am undifferentiated consciousness. Okay, so Samadhi, therefore, is a teaching tool, right? When it becomes...
So it's the same thing. When you become...
No, because when you come back from Samadhi, the person still carries ignorance. Okay, so look at this, Silma. It's very important. In Samadhi, so before Samadhi, there is divisions. In Samadhi, there is no divisions. Right? Okay. Now, I cannot call that no division true non-duality. Do you know why? Very important. When we're talking about Nirvikalpa Samadhi or deep sleep, I can't even call deep sleep true non-duality. Why?
It's an experience because it will be over.
Because to say that this is not non-duality and that state is non-duality, that contradicts the definition of non-duality. Non-duality means that which there is never a moment when I cannot find it. So that means I should be able to find it right now in the waking state, when I'm bored out of my mind, when I'm happy, when I'm samadhi, when I'm in deep sleep. If I could be conscious of deep sleep, maybe yoga nidra, who knows? I should be able to find it all the time. That's true non-duality. Therefore, you cannot put non-duality to any state because that contradicts. Non-duality means it's everywhere, even in right now. And yet I go inside a state and then I call that state non-duality. But this state is not non-duality. This state is duality, that state is non-duality. You see the contradiction? Non-duality means it is here and now. Will there ever be a time when it's not here and now? No, because that which is real means it obtains in the past, present, now, and the future, in any state, in any loka, in any world, by any person. It should be available right now. That's non-duality.
Sorry, I have a question, which is that if I die without moksha and I lose my body and mind, then my witness consciousness is part of the overall witness consciousness. How do I carry my individual karma with me?
Okay, so if you don't attain moksha, right? If you don't attain moksha and the body dies, then you continue exactly knowing the exact same thoughts that you know about yourself now. So you still say, oh, Katie. So the Katie has now lost the body, right? What happens? What's your experience now? Oh, I've lost my body. Wow. Oh, there's a body over there. Oh, this is so much more real. Wow. Why was I so obsessed over my body? That body was never me. You realize instantly that that body was not you, but the one who's realizing that is still the subtle body. So now that subtle body goes, oh, I definitely need now a new body. In fact, you don't control this. You don't select that you get a new body. You just appear in a new body. That's how the system works. So therefore, now, so that means you just simply continue exactly how you are right now without the physical body. They say that death is actually like a dream. It's not like sleep. It's like a dream. You go into a dream state. You're still aware of yourself, the same life, parents are still there, but then the moment you come into a new physical body, you forget everything.
Slate swiped clean.
Yeah, because you can't carry that. You know, you need a fresh slate.
I'm sorry, and I couldn't understand this. After moksha, even knowledge is gone, and how can the knowledge be gone?
We didn't say after moksha the knowledge is gone. Once that Sudoku puzzle is complete, once the knowledge of who I am is complete, that all that is here is one without a second, and all these appearances, including Hema's body and the one that asked this question, that is just an appearance of this one reality. So your knowledge from that moment on is even the person who just asked this question, Hema, that buddhi that just asked this question, the truth of that buddhi is nothing but awareness. So I'll take you step by step. So that buddhi that just asked this question, which is take the brain, for example, that's easier to visualize, the brain. What is that brain made of? Cells, right? Neurons. Yeah. Okay. So now which cell exactly asked that question? Like there's 10,000 cells, right? So now which cell particularly, so now which cell wants to know the answer, right? But look at this. Now that cell itself is made of atoms, right? So it's a bunch of atoms that came together that formulated that question. Now those atoms, if you reduce them further and further, they have no real tangible substance. It's just concepts. It's basically concepts like, you know, particles and quarks and so on. It's just concepts. And those concepts, that's what you call intelligence. Ishvara. Right? Knowledge. Like in the dream, Hema, when from you manifests a person, a dream character, what is that dream person who's asking the question about moksha? What is that person made out of? Because they're solid, right? The mountain is solid. But what is that mountain made out of inside your dream?
It just looks though as if it's made of solid, but in reality, it's nothing.
But
it's just my own, yeah.
Good. It's nothing but your impressions, nothing but your memories. So your memories, your impressions are creating a physical mountain. Now, what are your impressions made out of? Because impressions make the mountain. What are your impressions? They're just concepts. You can't even attribute a physical matter to your impressions. So your impressions, your memories, your life experience creates, by the power of your mind, a very physical looking, feeling like world. And inside that physical world, there's a person called Hema who's asking a question to a dream guru. And then the dream guru tells her, Hema, what just asked that question? And then the guru says, the whole thing, the one who asked the question, the one who's answering the question, the sound itself that's being answered is nothing but you. By your power, you're projecting both yourself, called Hema, and you're projecting a guru, and the guru is talking to Hema. And from your standpoint, it looks like there are two people. So now, when you recognize this, that no matter what you ask, what you see, what you experience is nothing but that intelligence appearing as this world. We call that Ishvara. And the truth of that intelligence is Sat and Chit awareness. Then what can you possibly ask that is outside that reality right now? What will you ever ask that is not already that reality right now? Who asked the question? A pot, didn't it? Hema is a pot. Look at this, everyone. Would you like to be this pot or this pot, Hema? Which pot do you like? Okay, we'll take this one. Okay, this is our favorite pot. Now, this pot called Hema asked the question, can I forget who I am? Once the knowledge takes place, can I forget who I am? The answer is no. Why not, Hema? Why can this pot not forget that it's the clay?
It's because it's made out of clay.
That means even the question itself that was asked is made out of awareness. And where is that awareness for you, Hema?
It's just there.
It's just there.
I can't point out where exactly it is.
Exactly. You can't locate it. It's just there. And that is what we call the final reality. Can you forget that? Can you forget that you're aware? No. Therefore, you cannot forget yourself. So once you recognize that awareness as the final reality, Brahman, what is there to say about forgetfulness? It is the only thing that cannot be forgotten. Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnam Eva Avashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.